You don't need that.
Yeah. Is it on now? I don't know. You're good. Okay, it's gonna, all right, perfect. All right, well, thank you guys for coming to my talk. If you're doing your job, you're doing it wrong. Some of you might have seen my hype video. If you haven't, check it out. But so if you are going to your job every single day and doing the tasks that are laid out in front of you every single day, day after day, year after year, what do you expect? To get promoted, right? Yeah. Wrong. I want to talk to you guys about my journey in coming into IT and really figuring out this process and how to advance. I want to preface this by saying, and I might say it again, this is just my journey. It's not a prescription or a recipe for those of you that work with me. These are just my ideas, and they're not representative of any company that I either work for now or have worked for in the past. So we'll start off by talking a little bit about me, which I hate to do. Something that you should know first and foremost. Here's a picture of me, and I think that this says a lot about who I am. I hate taking pictures. And when somebody asks me for a picture of me, without fail, I always send this one. This is me in my natural environment. I just want to be left alone. You might have seen some variations of this out there, but I guess this is the one that I'm most proud of. I really just don't like it, but I care about this presentation and I care about all of you, so I have included a couple of other pictures of myself. I like this one because it's really hard to see that I am actually in it. This is like Where's Waldo, but like the Tessa version. I'm that little head up there. And the funny thing is they actually built me a stool because I was so short that they couldn't see me. So if it weren't for that, you wouldn't be able to see me at all, which would have been fantastic. But this is me when I started out in my career. I taught for what I like to say was 2 years too many. I taught physics and biology, and it was a good experience, but ultimately I was really unhappy. And I needed to teach for 2 years to get my master's loans forgiven. So a year into it, I knew that I needed to make a change. And so I started reaching out to people on LinkedIn and asking them about what they did and if they liked it. Just random strangers. And I would set up phone calls or I would set up meetings for coffee. And I would talk to them not only about what they did, but how they got there. Talk to them about the pros, about the cons, and really tried to figure out how to move from my bad situation into a potentially good situation. And I taught for 2 years, like I mentioned, and when I say 2 years, I had all my things packed the last day of my second year of teaching, and I drove from northeastern Ohio to Columbus and moved in with a friend from college who just happened to have a 2-bedroom apartment. And so that process of really reaching out and trying to meet with people and find out what they do was really valuable to me because so many people were really nice. And they helped me into my career. And I realized through that process that I wanted to be that person helping other people get from a bad situation into a good one. So it was natural for me to get into recruiting. What wasn't natural was the fact that I didn't know anything about recruiting or IT. So as you can imagine, I was really overwhelmed when I started. But I went to a lot of different events and I met people and I got involved. You might notice the surroundings of this picture. You're here right now. It was in this very room that I took this picture. Kim, one of my co-stars, is right there. And I served on this panel, and I met with a lot of different recruiters and really got involved in my community to learn more about what I was doing and how to advance. And so part of that process for me was going out into the community at meetups and user groups and different conferences and trying to meet people and really asking them about what they did. And I did that because the conventional ways of learning recruiting weren't really working for me. So I just decided to make a lot of friends. Maybe I don't know every single thing about IT, but I feel like I know somebody who knows whatever I would need to know. And that's how I became successful. In this picture, you can see me a little bit better, so I don't love this one. This is a picture of me in a position that I received because I got out into the community. This is like maybe 2 weeks ago at Dog Food Con. I'm the COO of that organization. It's a local IT conference here in town. And I got that opportunity because I had gone to so many things that I was recognized. So going out and trying to accomplish my goals had some secondary effects for me. And kind of similar to that, it led to my current position as an associate advocate at G2O, formerly ICC. And this position really was pivotal for me, and that it built upon what I was already doing. As a recruiter, I wasn't supposed to necessarily go out into the community and meet with people and learn about what they were doing and how to get from one area to another. But I did that, and it helped me to transition into a role because I was basically doing that already prior to getting this position. And that's something that I want to talk to you guys about today. Whoops. I screwed it up. I don't know how to go back. There we go. All right, so I love these pictures of me, not just because you can't really tell where I am, like a little bit because you can't tell where I am, but this built on all of those things that I was talking about. So I told you that I'd gone out into the community and tried to make those relationships that led me to my role as an associate advocate. But more than that, I love spinning on the side. If I'm not at work, I'm usually spinning. And this is a picture of people that I either worked with or met in the community, or people that I had recruited who I had texted, I think 2 days prior to this class happening, and they came for a free class just because they knew it was important to me. So I love this because it encapsulates everything about what I was trying to do and trying to build. And they had no reason to go to this class except for that they cared about me. So I love this picture for that reason, and I think it really showed that I was successful in what I was trying to achieve. So the following are lessons that I've learned along my journey. I want to say again, these are not opinions of any of the organizations that I have either worked for or previously worked for. These are just my ideas. And just like I didn't follow a set path, I don't want you to copy me either, but I want this to inspire you to move forward and kind of blaze your own trail. We're going to talk about a couple of different areas here. Mainly it's about starting with yourself and building out. And all of these things are going to be going beyond the typical job description and job duties. Sometimes they tie in, sometimes it's a little bit tangential, but all of these things are in addition to what your job is expecting of you, because you're expected to do a good job. That's why you get a paycheck. If you don't, then there's a problem. So we'll talk about all of these and kind of break them down, and we'll mix in my journey as well. So the first section is you. And I think that the thing that I want you guys to understand here is it's important to be uniquely yourself and do things your own way. And that doesn't mean being different for the sake of being different, but making sure that what you're doing is comfortable to you and not trying to copy or replicate other people. So my story, when I started out in recruiting, I was really nervous and I was really scared because IT just generally as a recruiter, there's a lot of different areas that you have to know, and it was really overwhelming. And I remember one of my coworkers saying to just Google it, and I was like, what? What do you mean to Google everything all the time? That's your plan? I'm not going to do that. And some people said to just learn by talking to candidates, and I was like, I feel like it's not going to work. So like I mentioned, I went out into the community, and I did it in a less conventional way. As a recruiter, you've probably been to events and you see booths like this, where the recruiter sits behind the booth, and then you come up and you pretend like you want to talk to them, but really you just want their swag, right? Absolutely. Well, that's not a good way to meet people. They don't make eye contact with you, and they just shove along and grab all your stuff, right? I didn't want to do that. So instead of going to events and being behind a booth, I went in and asked my boss, can I just get an attendee ticket? And so I would go into the different sessions and sit next to people who didn't have anybody to talk to, or people sitting like one off by themselves, and talk to them about what they did. I didn't tell them I was a recruiter. Maybe I look like a recruiter, I don't know, but I didn't try to actively recruit them in that moment. My goal was to make a relationship with them and help them understand that I just wanted to learn. I wanted to have relationships with people so that I could call on them later and talk to them about maybe something that I didn't understand. And the consequence of that is that just down the road, they called me when they needed help because they trusted me, and it was a really unique and beneficial sort of an arrangement. This is an example of me doing it. The irony of this is that this is a picture of me at dog food when I just started out in my career. And again, you can see me like super well, so I hate it. But I had gone to this conference and I had done just what I described to you. I went up to two people who were sitting alone in the back of a session, and they were on the infrastructure side, which at the time was a place that I hadn't really had a lot of experience with, so I was really looking to keep them in my corner as friends. And so we went to the sessions the whole conference together. They looked for me the next day, and we hung out. And at no point did I try to recruit them. I just wanted to be their friends. I never said, when they asked me what I did, I didn't tell them necessarily that I was a recruiter. I was trying to recruit them. I just said, I'm just trying to learn about IT. And after that conference, we met up for coffee, and I still talk to these people to this day that I just randomly ran into. And I've called them when I've needed advice or help on different things. So we created a genuine relationship because I utilized what I felt were my strengths. I noticed that people sat alone, and has anybody ever sat alone at some event and wished that somebody would talk to them? Nobody? Really? Never? Okay, cool. I was gonna say, you guys are a lot more popular than I am. So utilizing those strengths and playing on what you're good at. Oh, I keep doing this. I can't do it. Can you put me back? Okay. There we go. That's the only one I did, right? Good. So focus on the long game, I think, is important as well. So in the slides that I just described, it would have been really easy for me to go to that conference and just try to meet people and bring them in for interviews that week, see how many people I could bring in and entice them for some random reason to come in and meet with me. But I didn't, because the relationships, that longer term investment was way more important to me. So I want you guys to keep that in mind when you meet people or when you think about things in your career. You need to manage your expectations and focus on what's important to you. You're not gonna get that immediate ROI. And I remember talking to my boss at the time, and he was like, okay, you need to go to this event and meet 10 people each day. And I just thought, you don't get it. You don't get what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to build these relationships that we'll build later. And throughout my career, they really helped me because then they referred their friends. It expanded a lot greater because they had better trust in me. And throughout your career, you're gonna have situations where maybe you don't get that immediate ROI. Maybe you came to this event hoping to meet somebody or meet two people and it doesn't work out like you planned. But there are longer term investments that you need to make and focus on that long game. I think another important point to that end is that a lot of people want to advance and they want to be just given a promotion because they've been doing the same thing over and over again throughout their lives, and they think that, I've sat in this desk for 12 years, so it makes sense that I should be the lead on this project. No, it doesn't. Just sitting there is not gonna help you. You need to be going above and beyond and taking extra responsibilities. So for example, with me, my current role as an associate advocate was such an easy transition because I was doing most of those things when other people at my organization weren't. So do the job that you want without the title. And similar to that, I would say, don't be entitled. You're not entitled to something just because you've been sitting there. Maybe there's a much more junior person who does a lot more than you do, even though you've been there way longer and deserves that promotion. So you need to be earning it and earning it every day. So to that end, avoid doing the same thing over and over again. You need to go above and beyond, but not everything is gonna work for every situation. Maybe going to a conference and going up to strangers and making friends with them and palling around with them for 2 days like a barnacle is not your jive. I get it. It's not for everybody. So if you try that and it just feels unnatural to you, don't get frustrated. Try something different. I don't want you to copy me. I don't want you to copy anybody else. I want you to do what feels good for you. And I think that you should also not get caught up in the process. You're gonna fail, probably, and probably a lot. And having said that, I think that a lot of people hype failure, and I don't want to do that because I don't think that failure is the only way you learn. You learn by experiencing things, whether they work out well for you or they don't. It's the message that you take away from them. So just enjoy the process and don't get hung up on those tiny little steps because there will be just as many missteps as there can be successes. Just keep going. So we talked about you, and I told you we're going to build out from what you can do to your surroundings. And there are a couple of things I want to touch on here. The primary thing that I want to talk about is relationships. So I think that people underestimate how important it is to be seen and get noticed by leadership in their organization. So you want that promotion, you want that raise, but you never go to anything. Leadership doesn't know who you are. Maybe just your manager knows, but do the people above them know who you are? How do you expect to advance? If you go to different events, and that could be company events or events in the community representing the company, then you're really doing a lot for the company's brand and then in turn your brand as well. So make sure that they understand the value that you provide and that you have good relationships with them because relationships, I think, are really important. And to that end, be thinking about your future job in every interaction that you have. I really, really love this gift because I think it's so perfectly. Yeah. It gets a little dark. Has anybody ever felt like that when looking for a job? Nobody? Like 3 of you? Really? Don't lie. Come on. I think that is exactly how the job search is. So let's not be like that. It's painful and graphic. And I'm going to just keep playing it until it gets in. Your relationship should be so strong that you never have to enter the traditional job search. You're either advancing at your company or you have connections outside of it that can help you if you ever get into a situation where you feel like you need to move on. So keep those relationships in mind, always thinking about the fact that you want to advance and move on in your career, hopefully. Most of you who came to this talk should want to advance. So keeping that in mind, I think, is really important. And when you're having those relationships, I want you to be genuine about those interactions. Think about what you can do for other people and not what they can do for you. If you go to meet somebody and the first thing out of your mouth is asking them to do something, then they're not really going to want to talk to you anymore. I remember there was a person that I was connected to on LinkedIn, maybe it was last year or 2 years ago. He said that he wanted to pay for lunch to random people that he had not met before. He just wanted to meet with them and talk to them about what they did and network. His only requirement is do not sell me something and don't try to hire me. And so guess who reached out to him? I did. And a lot of other people did. So many people reached out to him that he actually expanded his original requirement. I think he said he was going to do the first 30, and then he just opened it. And he met with a lot of different people. And I was towards the tail end, and I talked to him about what he did, and then I also asked him about his experience. And he said that even in that situation, some people still tried to sell him something. Like, really? So be genuine in your interactions and help other people. Build those long-term relationships, not because you want to suck the life out of people or get something from them. And then people will end up helping you in the future on their own anyway. I think it's also important to focus on getting out of your comfort zone. So maybe some of you think that public speaking is out of your comfort zone. For me, it was having pictures and being recorded on video. So do things to get out of your comfort zone. And I want you to all know that I care about you, which is why I'm going to tell you this next super embarrassing story. Here I am again. Again, I like this picture because it's dark and you can't really tell who I am. This is me, this little one here. This is a picture of me at a Best Places to Work luncheon, dressed as Napoleon Dynamite. But that's not even close to the worst part. So for those of you that haven't been to a Best Places to Work luncheon, when you go up to accept your award, they sometimes have you do a little skit prior to that acceptance. And in that skit, they decided that we would do the final dance scene of Napoleon Dynamite. As much as I hate flash photography and being videoed dancing, is like, this is just a collision of all of my worst fears ever. Because there was video, they were taking pictures. It was awful. And not only was I dancing, but I was dancing on a stage in front of people. And I thought I would be okay. And I walked in there and I was fine. And then they called her name. And I'm going up there in my glasses. I have my chapstick in my back pocket, ready to go. And I started shaking. My legs are shaking. My mouth felt dry. I was sweaty. It was weird. I didn't know what was going on. And not only were we all doing the dance, we were doing it one at a time down in a line. So each person was on spotlight. It was horrible. It was horrible. And they got to me, and they started over here. And they got to me, and I was shaking so bad that I stepped out, and it was supposed to be this long move, but I just stepped in front. I waved my arms a little bit, and I stepped back. And people that watched the video that they posted to LinkedIn and other social media forever talked to me, and they're like, yeah, we could definitely tell which one was you, not by how you looked, but because you did that. And I was like, great. But I did this for a couple of reasons. One, for my own personal growth. I wanted to go out of my comfort zone because I know that's how you grow. Two, this is for my company. And I knew that if I had volunteered for this, I would be noticed as somebody who was willing to go above and beyond what they're asking me to do. This is not in any job description ever, right? But I wanted to be seen as somebody who's willing to help out and do additional things other than what was asked of me. So I want to encourage you to dress up as Napoleon Dynamite and go downtown and dance on a stage. No, I want to encourage you to go outside of your comfort zone and do things that are going to distinguish you in your organization for those reasons, for yourself, but also to help you grow outside of your career, because it's not just about what they tell you to do in that job description. You need to go beyond that. And so getting outside your comfort zone can happen in your community as well. Speaking at conferences. Has anybody here ever spoken at a conference? A couple of you? Not enough. I think it's a really, really good experience. And I know that some people worry, they have that imposter syndrome of, if I go up there, I don't know everything about everything. Is somebody going to call me on that? Probably not. And if so, they're like a jerk, right? Have you ever heard somebody call a presenter out on things? And maybe I'm biased because I used to be a teacher and I taught high school, and they called me out just because they thought it was funny, but I got them every time. I'm just kidding. So going out and doing that helps you to grow a lot, but it also helps you to really understand what you're doing and what you're talking about. As a former teacher, I can tell you that I've never understood things as deeply as when I've had to present it to other people, because it really makes you question what you know and the different ways that you might arrive to a certain conclusion. So go out and do that. But if going to conferences is too big of a step for you, then do it at work. Hold internal presentations, lunch and learns, and talk about things that you're working on. It doesn't mean necessarily that you're an expert on every single thing that you do, but it helps to open up conversations. Maybe there's somebody on your team who you learn through that presentation knows something that you didn't know that they know. And maybe it helps you, again, to question your abilities in a way that you knew more than you thought you did. So doing this will help you grow, but it'll also show leadership that you're willing to kind of hold court with these individuals and help facilitate learning. And so they'll recognize you in your search to kind of grow beyond and above where you're standing. So all of these things, again, fall outside the normal job responsibilities, but I think are really crucial to helping you advance in your career. To that end, you spend all this time working on yourself and trying to grow your relationships. Don't burn bridges. Let's say you go out and you present at these conferences and in the community, you have all these great relationships, and you get promoted. And then it's just like, bye guys, and you never talk to them again, or you say something really snarky to that one guy that said that one thing during your presentation in front of leadership and you really got him. Don't do it. It's not gonna help you, because maybe that new place where you go isn't what you thought and you wanna go back. So as much as it might feel good to say something and really give them a piece of your mind, don't do it. One, it's not the classy thing to do, but second, it's not going to help you moving forward. And you'd be surprised, especially in Columbus. It's a big city, but it's so small. I know a lot of you in this room, so don't be mean to me. No, I'm just kidding. Just focus on being good to everybody in your life and keep it nice. So we've talked a little bit about you and your surroundings and how that can go above and beyond your typical job responsibilities. But what about your time? When the heck are you supposed to do all this? And what are you supposed to prioritize? There's so much that you can be doing outside of your job responsibilities. Never mind the fact that you have a family and 7,000 hobbies, whatever you choose to do. How are you supposed to manage that? I think it's about prioritization. And the first thing that I think you should prioritize in your time is networking. Networking is really important. Building those relationships and having a solid network of people. I love this, by the way. I think it's amazing. Building a solid network is really important because then you can have people to draw on for expertise for maybe a project that you're working on, or again, if you're looking to advance and grow, you can have people that you can easily call on. Remember that GIF from before about the job search and how painful that was? With a strong network, you don't need to worry about it. So really focus on those genuine relationships and having people that you can call on for anything that you might need, and people that you tend your network. So don't just meet these people and never talk to them until you need something again. It's not going to help you. How would you feel? How would you feel if you met me and I called you in 2 years because I needed something from you? Kind of crappy, right? So don't do it. Make sure that you're attending that network, reaching out to them, and giving to them, as well as having them help you on different things. And then, did I do it again? Maybe. I have a problem. Okay. So your job doesn't end at 5 p.m. And again, I love this GIF because this is who I want you to be. I want you to be SpongeBob in this every time. Not really, not completely. If you can't tell already, I love GIFs a lot, right? Does anybody notice? But your job doesn't need to end at 5 p.m. Having said that, you shouldn't just be going everywhere all the time. It's about prioritization. So go to events after hours, whether those are internal company events or events outside of the community. Just get involved and make sure that you're constantly working on yourself. And maybe that means working on a new technical skill, taking an online class, or doing something outside of the realm of your position, because you're connected to so many different areas in IT. Doing all of those things are going to help you to grow, help you to meet people, and help you to have a more solid network as you move forward. So we talked about you, your surroundings, and kind of how to manage your time. How do you measure if what you're doing is working? Because at some point you could just be wasting your time, right? For us, I think it's about knowing our value within IT. Different organizations and different leaders might value you differently. And I'm in a management position where I often have to deliver difficult feedback. Sometimes I'm giving feedback to people and it's not really well received. Sometimes I give great feedback and they just brush it off. So where is that balance? I think it's important to take constructive criticism and take it well. So look at what they've talked to you about and figure out what you can do to just improve yourself, but also not taking that too to heart so that it destroys you or destroys your motivation or self-esteem. By that same token, I think it's really important to know your strengths and know your abilities. And I think that happens by keeping an open dialogue with your manager and leadership in your organization and asking questions and clarifying. Maybe you don't agree with everything, but I think that in every situation, there's an opportunity to grow and move forward. So look at that conversation with your manager in that way. To that end, be resilient with whatever they tell you. like I said, don't put your head in the sand. It's really easy to do, and it's really easy to get frustrated, especially if you're moving on, doing these extra things outside of your career, and people don't seem to value that. I've definitely been there, but ultimately I knew it was important to me, and I knew that it was going to be something that propelled me into the career that I wanted to do. So be resilient about whatever feedback you receive, and understand that it's just a process of helping you grow. I think that probably the most important thing that I want to talk about is ranking your priorities. So I want to just take a quick poll here. I've got a couple of aspects of a job. How many of you think that job security, just by a show of hands, is the most important? Okay, number one. Okay. What about, how many think that your title is the most important? Nobody? Liars. Salary. How many of you think salary is the most important? Okay. Values. Okay. Wow, that's a lot. And then work-life balance. Okay. So who's right?
Everybody.
Everybody. You're right. Because it's what's important to you. What's important to me might not be important as like number one to you, and that's okay. And you need to balance these. But by that same token, what's important to me right now might not still be as important to me 10 years from now if my situation changes. So I think it's really important for you to evaluate where your priorities rank and evaluate it frequently. So make sure that you're constantly thinking about whether or not your job lines up with how you rank your priorities every time you look for a new job, but also every time your life circumstance changes, because you might slowly realize that you're starting to resent your position for some reason because your priorities are out of whack with what the job is giving you. So let's talk about the takeaways from what I've talked about today. Do it your way. Everything that you should be doing, you need to be doing uniquely to yourself and in a way that's not copying other people. You can't do it alone, though, so make sure your network is strong and that there are people outside there to help you, and people that you constantly tend to, that you can look to for help and for guidance. And then utilize your time wisely. We have a limited amount of time, and I constantly hear people say, I don't have time for that, or I'm just too busy. And I always hate that. I always cringe, because we all have the same amount of time. It's just what we prioritize in our lives. So if you tell me that you didn't make that a priority, okay. If you don't have time for that, that's a lie. It's not true. So keep that in mind. And then evaluate your situation frequently, because your circumstances can change, and so can the things that are going on in your job to line up with those priorities. And it's really important to keep those in alignment constantly throughout your life. So you might be wondering, you just talked a lot and threw a lot at me. How can I change today? Well, you're at an event, meet somebody, because I told you to. You can use that excuse. Lastly, I want to say thank you, because I have progressed throughout my career, and it's all because of the connections that I made and the people that put me here. So genuinely, a lot of you came just because you know me and you're friends with me. Some of you didn't, and I appreciate that. But I really owe where I am to all of my connections and friendships. So thank you so much for everything that I've learned, and thank you all for joining me here tonight.
So this is the part of the night where we ask Tessa some questions, and then afterwards we are going to have an after party, and it is going to be awesome. The last month's after party was the best moment of my life. So let's try to beat that tonight. And that will be at Fido's. So Andy's going to ask a few questions, and then we're going to open up to you guys, so start thinking what to ask.
Thanks, Kevin. So we talked a lot about like going above and beyond and doing things that are in addition to your job, but one of the topics we really didn't cover was burnout. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk about burnout a little bit and how that relates to going above and beyond.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that burnout is a real concern, especially when you've worked a full day and now I'm telling you to go to this event forever and hang out and meet people and essentially be working some more. And I get it, because when I started out, I kind of encountered the same thing. It was hard for me because I didn't know anything about IT, so I was going to every meetup ever. And as you can imagine, got old fast. So I think that prioritizing what's important to you and going to events that you like and then only returning to events that you feel that you're getting new value from is really important, but also balancing the things that you like to do too. So spinning, for example, or cooking or reading or hanging out with friends. And so making those equal priorities with those networking events, I think, is really critical to preventing burnout, because it can affect you at work too. So it's a really delicate balance.
Yeah, it sounds like work-life balance is high on your list.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you also talked about being involved in the community and being involved in conferences. You're COO of Dog Food Con. So if people in the room are interested in getting involved in community events, whatever that may be, can you kind of give some tips on how to get involved?
Sure. So for me, this position of being COO of Dog Food happened because I was so active in the community. I went to everything, and one of the organizers, I think he had heard of me before, maybe. Kim can attest to that. But he had known that I'd gone to so many events that I was recognizable in the community, and I met with a lot of people, and I networked with a lot of people. So I think that would be my first piece of advice about getting involved and introducing yourself to people that you admire. I know that I went to a lot of different user groups, and I introduced myself to the speakers, and I stayed connected with them later. So, and then I would just go up and volunteer to help them, and not all the time. Again, you need to have a balance, but volunteer to do something for them and not just have it be, hey, can you help me with this? Just do it in a genuine way.
Awesome, thank you. So you've had a lot of various career things we talked about tonight. Can you maybe touch on a career highlight that you had?
This.
Well, thank you. We've really enjoyed having you here. And so now what I would like to do is I would like to open it up to the floor. So we are recording tonight. So if you could raise your hand and wait for me to get to you with the microphone so we can record your question, I'm going to now.
Or they can come up. I love when
Or, so we have two options.
That's the best.
I will come to you if you would like.
If I have to be on camera, you have to be on camera.
Or you can come up here and ask your question from this lovely high top chair right here. So either raise your hand or come on up. You do whatever you want. Dealer's choice.
Hi.
So first off, I got to say, the fact that you saw how HR was and how everyone was doing it and really chose to take the hard road and say, I'm not going to just sit behind a booth. I'm going to actually meet these people and see them for who they are. Props. Like, that's awesome. So, so my name's Hunter. I've actually been meeting with a lot of recruiters, primarily in the UX research space this past week. And what they've been telling me is that here in Columbus, there is a sizable gap between the requested talent and the talent pool. Where I'm at and what I'm finding is that I have a desire to get into a certain field. And although I don't have a lot of hard experience, what I've been attempting to do is trying to relate some of my past experience in terms of my mental models and how I think into that role. What are some of the most effective tactics, or that kind of sounds like I'm, scheming, but
Well, you are, sort of.
but like, how do you communicate your value towards a role that you really don't have any direct experience in? So.
Yeah, it's a great question. I dealt with that a lot as a recruiter when I was working with candidates who maybe had analogous experience, but nothing direct or hands-on. And when you're interviewing something, maybe nobody's done it, but everybody is a quick learner. And I always thought it was funny because I'm not really a quick learner. I think it takes like a long time for me to learn things. But I could also talk about analogous experiences, so things that I've done that are maybe similar, and show evidence of those types of things. And so I think you could do that by a couple of ways. Either if you worked on projects on your own, or a lot of the meetups that you go to, there are people there willing to help you. I know from a more development standpoint, outside of, I guess, what you're talking about, they have coding exercises that they would do together. So I would imagine that some of the user groups more in your area would have something similar, or people that are willing to mentor somebody who's a little bit more junior, if you're willing to volunteer your time instead of being paid for it. So I think that would be my advice for you. And then also just connecting with people in that industry and do what I did. Ask them how they got there and what they did to gain that experience.
So the moral of the story is do what Tessa did.
I don't want you to be me, but I want you to innovate like I did. So, yeah, absolutely.
Great, thank you. All right, other questions?
You can come up here with me. It's okay. You know me. It's fine.
I do. I'm sorry.
Nice to meet you. I'm Tessa.
So I have two questions. I'm gonna cheat a little bit.
I'll allow it.
So first one, do you wish you knew this when you were a teacher? And second one, you said do the job even if you don't have the title. How do you manage doing the job without like being pretentious to the person that already has that title? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you ask me if I wish I knew, are you asking if I wish that I knew I'd be in this position when I was a teacher?
No, if you knew like your method, the test, the do more.
Yeah. I think it's a good question. I could have used some lifelines a couple of days when I was a teacher. You know, there was hope out there to innovate that way, and I think at some point you are really unhappy in your situation, and I've heard people say that I was really strong to do what I did to get out, but I think that you're really strong when you don't have another choice, you know? That was my only option. I was not happy as a teacher, so I needed to go out and meet people and find something different. And I feel like I kind of clawed my way here, and I'm proud of that. And I always knew I was feisty, so. And then your second question, like basically how not to be a jerk.
Yeah.
I think that you can go into things in a polite manner, like taking on additional responsibilities, leading meetings in the absence of the person that typically would do it. And so you're not like stepping on their toes, you're just kind of helping out. And then just offering to assist. It doesn't have to be like a bully type of a situation where it's like me or you. It can be we're both moving towards this goal and I want to help out. And obviously some people aren't going to take that well, but you probably don't want to work with them anymore anyway, right? With a jerk. All right, awesome. Thanks, Stella.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Brady.
Hi, nice to meet you again.
Yep. So something that I struggle with is keeping myself motivated. So I'll go through bursts of like a few weeks where I really want to get something done, do something outside of work and stuff. But then I burn out and then I don't get back to it. So
Yeah.
what's something that helps keep yourself motivated, doing things outside of work and outside of your comfort zone?
So I think that a big piece of that is being purposeful in what you're doing. So prioritizing having fun as well as going to those things, because if you hold those in equal priority, you're not going to burn out because you're going to have balance in your life. But I think that having things that you do, hobbies or exercise outside, really helps with that because it's burning off that extra stress. And you're thinking about this in a different way. It's not just I'm going to work and then going to work again. It's I only go to a meetup, once a month, and so I should go to this one. You're not going to get burned out. And not doing too much. Don't do too much. I was going to a ton of meetups every week. I think I was going to like 4 meetups a week there for a while, and it got old really fast. And you want to be that person who says that they've done all that stuff, but you also want to hang out with your friends and have a life and be with your family. So balance, I think, is really important in keeping that.
Thanks.
No problem.
All right, more questions.
Hey.
Hi.
So there was actually a little conversation that happened back there, and one of them was around career progression.
Was it with Tessa?
May have been. I don't know.
We like to keep it simple at G2O, Tessa and Tessa. Yeah.
Yes. So in case you get confused, they've got the front and the back of the room
Yeah.
covered at the same time.
She's way nicer than me. Let's be real.
So one of the things that was talked about was career progression. So how would you advise talking to your boss about maybe career progression, how to get on the right ladder rather than climbing the wrong ladder, and then having them say, hey, thanks for working hard, but that's not what we wanted.
So I think a lot of that comes into having a good relationship with your boss and having honest dialogue. So taking whatever feedback that they give you and trusting that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. I think it's also about being honest with them about the things that are important to you and maybe why one direction isn't as good as what you might think. Like why you want to choose this other direction when maybe it wasn't the path that they had laid out for you. So that good relationship, I think, is really important. And if you don't have a relationship with your boss that way, then I think it's time for you to rethink your situation.
Kind of goes back to what you were talking about with the criticism thing.
Mm-hmm. I think we can all be guilty of taking criticism too hard, but it needs to be done the right way.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem.
More questions? Time for 2 more, I would say. We got time for 2 more questions. All right.
That's a long, awkward walk up here.
Put music on or something.
Yeah, right?
Like I think I have some music queued up, so I'll
Yeah.
give the next
Yeah.
person.
It doesn't help him.
I know.
You can have music when you walk back, all right?
So I'm going to be doing my first public speaking next week. You're obviously a very effective communicator. You did a
Thank
great
you.
job.
Thank you.
What are some tips you'd have for first-timers like me?
So I think, and I actually talked to Kevin about this a couple of times prior to this presentation and then another one that I had done. He really gave me some good tips, so I don't want to take credit for all of these. I'm going to give Kevin the credit. I think that talking to the people in your audience and kind of breaking that barrier really helps because it's different than, I'm the expert here and you guys are just waiting to get all my knowledge. I think talking to them and getting to know them helps you to have a better relationship with people. And then also knowing what you're talking about and speaking passionately about that. If you're passionate about something, I think hopefully it comes through. I feel like hopefully you guys know that I'm passionate about this. But being passionate about what you're talking about and just knowing it inside and out. I think that nervousness comes from maybe being a little bit uncertain about what you're talking about and unsure about how people are going to interact. And I remember the last presentation that I did was actually at my dad's company, and I was really, really nervous about it because I didn't want to embarrass my dad. I wanted to be a good reflection of him, and I had a conversation with him about that, and he was like, Tessa, you could go up and vomit on stage. I'm just proud of you for trying. So think about the worst situation. The worst situation was I fell, and then it was the most popular Columbus Web Group video of all time, So I think that just not taking yourself too seriously and understanding the purpose of why you're going to talk. You're going there to share information, but more than that, you're going there to grow and get more comfortable with presenting. And maybe you totally bomb, But then you know for the next time that it's not going to be that bad. It can't be as bad as the first time, right?
Right. So you always. So what I'm getting is, you always judge yourself more harshly than others are actually judging you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's definitely the case. And I remember in high school, like you had a pimple or something, you thought everybody was staring at you. But do you ever think back and like, oh yeah, Tessa had a pimple that one day? No, because you're thinking about your own face, right? Like, absolutely. So people are really thinking about themselves more than they're thinking and critiquing you. And so, like, as harsh as it sounds, like, you're not that important because everybody else is just, like, concerned about themselves, you know? Like, when they go home, like, they just think about what they're thinking about, and nobody's sitting up there judging every single thing you say.
Well, I do think about myself a lot.
We all do. It's nature.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Good luck. Nice.
So, go ahead. The last question.
Should we do a round of applause for the last question?
Yeah, let's do it. You need the mic. Yeah.
See, I don't do this a lot. I think I've been in the process of kind of a job search for a while, and I'm not a good interviewer, so that's probably my job search is taking a little while. And I'm trying to sort of think from like the recruiter's perspective, where say like you see a job listing and it mentions like say the requirements and things like that, and you meet like 4 or 5 of them pretty well, and then maybe like 1 or 2 not so much, and but it's a job, at least in your mind as you see it, like what, I could really see myself doing this, and it just sounds like really interesting. And then maybe like an intangible thing, it's the job is in Indianapolis, and you like going to Indianapolis 500 or something like that. You just sort of feel it seems like a good fit to you.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of what's the type of things that a candidate might want to sort of do to sort of like move themselves kind of across the finish line for some of those requirements that may or may not fit exactly, and tips that you might be able to offer them.
Sure. I've got a mic already.
Okay,
You can
great.
keep it. So if you meet 100% of the qualifications of a job, then you shouldn't be doing that job. You want to be doing something where you're learning and growing. So nobody is necessarily going to meet 100% of the qualifications. When I was a recruiter, I would say it needs to be 80% skills and qualifications, and then 20% the desire to learn. And so I think focusing on that when you're looking at your job search is really important. But as far as narrowing the gaps, again, I want to fall back on the analogous experiences. So maybe you haven't done 100% of what they're saying, but you've done things similar. I always hate it when people are like, well, I'm a really quick learner, or I can learn. Like, I believe you. But it's more important for you to show me what you've done that's similar so that I can really see how the transition could be and how you could fit into that organization. And I think that interviewing is hard. I know that for me even, I had been interviewing people, but then when I interviewed recently, I was like, I've written resumes every day. I don't know how to write mine. I'm so confused. But practicing is really important. And I know that a lot of recruiters, if you reach out to them and just say, listen, I'm having trouble in my job search, and I would really appreciate you meeting with me. I'll buy you a cup of coffee. Can you kind of critique me in interviewing? I think that might be helpful. My recruiters out there, just in general, would you ever be willing to do that with a person generally? See some head nods. Because it's tough. You're an expert in your field. We're experts in our fields. So they're different, and there's skills that you need to learn. And so I guess don't be hard on yourself for not being good at it, because although I did a lot of interviewing, I wasn't the greatest at being interviewed.
Takes time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
No problem.
So before we wrap up, I got a couple of housekeeping announcements. We have got a bunch of extra food that's sitting out there, so make sure to take some on your way home. We also are going to have an after party, which Kevin is super, super pumped about, at Fido's, which is also the correct place because he pointed there. And other than that, you're free to hang out here for a while. We're going to mingle, chit-chat, whatever you want to do. Maybe meet some new people like Tessa suggested.
Use me as an excuse to do that.
And so we're happy to have everyone here. And then we'll start to kind of make announcements when we're going to head over to Fido. And the last and most important thing is a humongous applause for Tessa.